Good morning, Shavua Tov. As we continue in Maseches Chagiga, we're on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. We're 8 lines, 2 lines on top of the wide lines. We're up to Tan Rabbanon, Ma'aseh Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroika Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma. There's an incident involving Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroika and Elazar ben Chisma. Shahalchu lahakbil Pnei Rabbi Yoshua b'Pekin. They went to visit Rabbi Yoshua, their Rabbi in Pekin. There's a mitzvah to go visit the Rebbe on Shabbos or Chodesh or on Yom Tov, based on the pasuk in Navi where Elisha asks where the husband asks the woman, "Why are you going to see Elisha? It's not Shabbos or Rosh Chodesh." And also based on the mitzvah of Re'iyah of going to the Beis Hamikdash and the Shalosh Regalim. We don't have that mitzvah anymore, but in lieu of that, we go visit our Rebbeim. So Amr Lahem, Rabbi Shua said to the students who came to visit him, what was the novelty? What was the teaching that was taught today, especially the new teaching that was taught today in the Beit Midrash? Why was it Rabbi Yeshua in the Beit Midrash? Rabbi Nosson says he was already elderly and weak, so he couldn't come. So he wants to know what the Hidush is. So Amr Lai, the students very smartly and rightly said, and we'll see why they said this later on, Tamidecha anu, umimecha anu shaitin. We are your students, and we came to hear from you. We don't want to talk, we want to hear. Very important concept in life. Listen to your elders. Listen to the Chachamim. Stop trying to show off and saying your parts, but rather hear what they have to say. But Amr Lahem, he said, Alpha Pikain, okay, it's true, you want to hear from me, but still, you went to Beis Medrash. There must have been a chidush there. It's impossible when people learn together, they won't come out to new insights. So he sees they're not answering, so he starts talking a little bit with them. Shabbat shel mihaisa. Whose Shabbat it was. What does this mean? The Gemara in Brachos tells us Rabbi Gamliel was removed from the office of Nasi and was replaced with Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Gamliel was eventually reinstated, but now they didn't know how to divide it. So Rabbi Gamliel, they ended up giving him 3 weeks, and he would be or Shiva, and he would give the shir. And Elazar ben Azariah would lecture on the remaining week. So the question was, so he's asking him whose turn was it? Why would he want to know whose turn? It would make a difference who was giving the lecture. Because we have a Gemara Megillah that tells us if you say something in the name of someone who said it, you bring the Geula. Like we see that Esther said in the name of Mordechai, and it caused the Jews to be redeemed and be saved. Okay? Shabbat Shel Mihaita. They told him Shabbat Shel Elazar ben Azariah Haita was the Shabbos of Elazar ben Azariah. And he asked them, what was the Haggadah? What was the discourse? What was the Agadata that was taught today? Why is he Dafka asking Agadata and not Halacha? Some Sefer asks that question. Perhaps based on the Gemara we're going to have later, he wanted to avoid a certain problem. So what did they speak about? So Amrulai, they said the Parshas Hakel. Uma Darishba. So Rishu was trying to pull it out of them. And what was the drasha? So finally they said, Hakel to when it comes to the mitzvah of Hakel. You have the men, the women, and the children. The men come to learn. The mitzvah to learn Torah. Nashim ba'it lishmoa. The women come to hear. The mitzvah, the women do not have a mitzvah of learning Torah like a man has a mitzvah of learning Torah Lishma. The question is, can you even teach Torah to women? The Maisa we paskin a few different ways. One, we say, and I believe this is the Rambam, that you can teach them Torah Shabiktav. So Torah Tanakh, everything that's Ktav, and a lot of seminaries focus on that. They focus on Chumash, they focus on Navi, and the Mefarshim to it. And others say, like the Ramah and others, that there's a certain mitzvah and something that they need to know. They can learn it. And it's no Hilchas Shabbos, no Hilchas Tefillah as it pertains to the woman, and other such mitzvahs that they need to know about. So they're allowed to learn it. How in depth can they learn? Mordechai Eliyahu was of the opinion that if they need to learn something, and they can open the Gemara and learn it. Yes, if that need that spot, those 3 lines, 5 lines, whatever that little sugya, whatever it is, that's pertaining to the halacha or whatever they're learning, they can't learn it, but they shouldn't learn Gemara as the men learn Gemara. It should be on a need to know kind of basis. There are others that say no, women today, and this is I believe the Shita of the Lubavitch Rebbe, that women today, you know, they go to university and they have PhDs and they're very knowledgeable and they're very so why shouldn't they need not why shouldn't they be knowledgeable in Torah? So I think the answer a lot of times will be dependent on the community, on the women involved, on the level of learning and where they're holding as well. But in the end of the day, there is no mitzvah per se for women to learn Torah, so therefore it says lishmoa. Taf lema ba'in. So why bring a baby? Why bring the little children? What are they going to do? They're not learning anything. So kidei litain schar l'mivehen. In order to give schar to those who are bringing them. What does this mean? The parents are coming. They have to be there. That means that they have no babysitters left at home. So they're going to have to bring them anyway. Sorry, I wanted to give the parents schar for bringing them. Anyway, you're going to bring them. They have nowhere else to leave them. They're still going to get schar. There's another idea here as well. That an experience makes a roshim. An experience makes a difference to a child. Even though you think he's 1, 2, 3, 4, but she my dad, he's small, nothing's gonna be, nothing will happen, he's okay. Truth is, even an experience for a young child leaves them with a certain flavor, a certain feeling. So therefore, bring the kids, let them have that experience of what it is for millions of Jews to stand and listen to the king as he reads the Torah. So Amar Lahem, Yeshua said to them, Margalit Tova Haita Beyetchem, you had such a beautiful teaching in your hands. Ubikashtem Lo'abada and you wanted to withhold it from me. You didn't want me to have such a beautiful teaching. Why is it such a beautiful teaching for Rabbi Yeshua? Rabbi Yeshua, we say, Asher Yoldatai, praiseworthy is his parents. Why? His mother used to go and take him to hear the Torah being learned in the Beit Midrash when he was just a baby, when he was just born. She took the bassinet and took it in a way that he wouldn't make noise and disturb, right? The Magen Abraham points out, Maharil, that you can bring children to the shul, but you can't bring children to the shul if they're going to disturb. So she must have made it in a way that he didn't disturb, and he would listen to the Torah when he was a little child. So you see, that experience of being there made a difference. It made a reshim in him, and he became who he was, and he attributed partly, at least, to the fact being around such an amazing scenes every day as a little child. Okay. The Oy Darish, now that they started saying Elizabeth Nazarian said, so it says Oy Darish. He said even more. It says in Pasuk, Et Hashem Hi'amarti Hayayim. You have praised Hashem today. Pasuk in Devarim. Pasuk before that it says, V'Hashem Hi'menecha Hayayim. And Hashem has praised you today. Amr Lem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Atem Asituni Chativa Acha Be'olam. You made me a unique praise in this world. V'ani Eseh Etchem Chativa Achat Be'olam. I'm also going to make you a unique praise in the world. Atem asituni chativa achad ba'olam. You made me a unique praise in the world. Dichtiv Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God. Hashem is one. So you have a unique praise. Now I'm going to make you a unique praise in this world, says Hashem. Shinamar, as we say, Omi kamcha Israel go'echa ba'aretz. And who is like your people, a unique nation on the earth. Tosfot, top Tosfot, but it's also mentioned in note number 1, so we could take a look in the English, easier for us. The sage of the Midrash teach that there are 3 who testify about each other: Israel, Shabbat, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, both Israel, the Jewish people, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu testify that Shabbat is the day of rest. The Shabbat testifies with Hashem of Israel's uniqueness. And Israel with Hashem, they testify. No, what do you say? And in concert with Israel, so the Shabbat with Israel with Israel talk about Hashem's uniqueness, and that's what says the Tosfot that we say in the Mincha Tefillah on Shabbat. Atah echad v'shimcha echad u'mi ka'amcha Yisrael ve'echad ba'aretz. And this is found in the Mincha prayer of Shabbat. Interesting midrash from the Tosfot. Okay, v'afu patach v'darash, and he also explained as follows. He gave more drashot. Who is giving this drashot? It makes more sense to say that this is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Someone to say it's Rabbi Yeshua, but it makes more sense to say there wasn't a Nazariot. We'll see why. Divrei Chachamim, he's bringing out pasuk in Koheles. Divrei Chachamim, Kardvonot, Uchmaserot, Nituim, Baalei, Asupot, Nitinu, Miroeh Echad. Okay? It says the words of the wise are like goads or goads, and like nails well planted are the sayings of the masters of assembly given from one shepherd. Okay, now what's this kardvonot? Kardvonot was a stick, they had a nail on it that they would use to tap the animal so that we know where to walk. So lama nimshalu divrei Torah the dorvan. Why is divrei chachamim, which now the Gemara is saying is divrei Torah, so perhaps is the divrei rabbanon in order to protect the Torah, a sayaglu Torah, fence for the Torah the chachamim put into place. Why is it compared to the stick with the nail on it? My dorvan. When the same way you use the stick on the cow, so it doesn't walk over vegetation, it doesn't walk over trees, doesn't destroy bushes and stuff like that. You make sure he goes in a way that doesn't destroy the world. So too, after Victoria, so too the words of the Rabbanon. They help a person have direction in life and not go to hell, but rather have chayim, have life, have heaven. You have olam haba. Ma darvon zeh mitaltel. 1 second, if you're going to compare it to this darvon, this stick with a nail on it, well, it's a movable item. You can pick it up and move it around. So Torah mitaltelin. So same thing with the Torah. You can move it around. You can change out the nail. You can do other things. You can just play around with it. No, Talmud Lomer. For the pasuk says masmerot, like a nail. A nail is pretty permanent. You put it in, it stays in place. 1 second. But what happens when you use a nail? You use a nail, the area where it goes into gets less, right? The wall becomes smaller in the sense that it loses that space where the nail is going in, or maybe the nail gets damaged as it's going in also. So it's somewhat of a loss. Are you saying that that a person learns Torah, he's also going to lose out financially, right? The pasuk says nituim. It says planted. Ma niti'a zo para virava. Just like a planting, you plant the plant, it grows, it's fruitful and multiplies. So after Torah, parim viravi. Therefore, it's planting. The nail is like planted because unlike an actual nail, a planted nail grows and multiplies. Plus, it continues and says, "Baalei asupot," the masters of assemblies. These are the yeshivot, these are the beit midrashot. People sit around together. They have a group of chabura and they learn. Halalu mitamein v'halalu mitaharin. These ones say, you sit in the base medrash and they have one question: is it Torah or is it Tameh? And you have a group say Torah, and a group say Tameh. Halalu oisrin v'halalu matirin. This one say it's also. This one say it's motor. Halalu poislin v'halalu machshirin. This one says it's possible. Those say it is kosher. How can I learn Torah? A person can say every issue is a debate and disagreement. Every time there's 100,000 opinions. How can I possibly learn? So Talmud Leimer Kulam Nitinu Miroya Echad. All of them come from one shepherd. I mean, they all come from one source, as we saw on Shavuot night. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. And we explained it based on the Drashas Haran of really it's all from Hashem. There's a halachic process, and sometimes even though you might not get the right halach at the end, each one is correct in the sense that it went through the halachic process. And then there's what's called an operational truth that we have to use something halacha l'maisa, but doesn't mean the other one is not correct. So all from one Hashem. El echad nataron, one God gave them. Parnas echad amran, mipi adon kol hamasim baruchu. One leader proclaimed them from the mouth of the master of all masters. So Moshe Rabbeinu taught to the Jewish people, one person. And God spoke all these words. So what are you supposed to do? A person should make himself like a mill hopper, which is literally a large funnel. What's a funnel? It's big on the top and it's narrow on the bottom. It's like when you pour the window washer fluid into the car. You use the funnel, then it goes in, big amount, and it goes into the small. The antifreeze and all those other things that you use in the car, you always have used a funnel. You've seen a funnel, you know what it is. So be also to be like a funnel. What does this mean? You have to let everything in. But then, I then get yourself a heart that discerns. And to hear each one and understand all the reasonings. A person has to hear it all, put it all into the funnel, and as it goes through, he pays attention, he discerns it, he analyzes it, and he comes up with an understanding why this one's saying that, why one's saying that, one's saying that. It becomes now clear in his head, and now he can get the psak halacha because he's processed it, he's gone through it, he's understood the different opinions. He's not just throwing it away. Rabbi Yeshua then said to Rabbi Yochanan, so that's why it makes sense to say that the other statement is Rabbi Nazariah, because now Rabbi Yeshua is speaking at this point. It cannot be considered an orphan generation when you have Elazar ben Azariah that dwells with them because of his amazing drashot and understanding of the Torah. It's not cannot be considered a orphan generation. So now the Gemara wants to know, going back to the beginning of the story, where these rabbis were hesitant to tell Rabbi Yeshua what they learned in the Beis Medrash, and he had to pry it from them like he was pulling teeth, asking them questions and stuff like that. So the Gemara's question is, the limru lo behedya. Let them say it to them immediately. Why did they say, "Oh, we're your students, we want to hear from you"? They didn't want to tell him, even though he was asking questions. The Gemara says, "I'll tell you why." Mishum maaseh shahaya. Because there was a Maisa, there was this incident that happened. The Tani was told right to Maisa Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus. Rabbi Yossi from Damascus. Shalom Lekabel Pnei Rabbi Eliezer. Ben Lloyd. He went to go see Rabbi Eliezer. Some say it's Rabbi Hurkinus. He went to Rabbi Eliezer in Lloyd. Amar Lloyd. Rabbi Eliezer, for whatever reason, couldn't make the Beis Medrash that day. So he asked Rabbi Yossi, what did they teach in the yeshiva? What was the chidush? And he didn't say, Rebbe, I came to hear you. He was very excited to say. So Amrullah, he said, Nimnu b'gamru. We took a vote and we decided. He's teaching over a halacha. Nimnu b'gamru. Amunamoyim ma'aser in ma'aser oni b'shviyas. Okay. So usually we know in the Shemitah year there's no ma'aser, there's no trumas because it doesn't belong to the person. However, that's only true in Eretz Yisrael proper. Outside of Eretz Yisrael, in the border cities, there is no mitzvah of Shemitah, but there is a mitzvah of Meiser and Trumos. Okay? And the question was, which Meiser should they do in Ammon and Moab in the year of the Shemitah year in Eretz Yisrael? Right? Because we know in the first 2 years you do Meiser Sheni, you bring it up to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim. And in the third and the sixth year, you give Meiser Ani. So what do you do in the 7th year in Ammon and Moab and those other border cities that are Chayiv and Meiser and Trumas are potter from Shemitah? So Amar La, so they said, oh, Ammon and Moab, Meiser Ani b'Shvius. You should give the poor Meiser in the year of Shemitah. Amar La, Rabbi Eliezer got very upset with him. Yosef, he says, B'shot yadecha v'kabel enecha. Stick out your hands and let your eyeballs fall into them. Accept your eyeballs into your hands, making him blind, whether figuratively or literally. Yossi lost his eyesight. Pashat yadu v'kabel enav. He stuck out his hand, seemed too literal, and his eyeballs fell into them. Bocher Eliezer started to cry, and he said, the secret of Hashem is those who fear him, and his covenant to inform them. They're saying maybe these Chachamim, they forgot that Allah and Hashem wanted to help them, so he reminded them. And that's where they didn't know what Amrullah, he says to them. Don't go around counting and making voting. Because Kach Mikubilani, Mirabonon, Mirabi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Sheshama, Miraboy. I heard from Yochanan ben Zakkai, who heard from his Rebbe, who heard from his Rebbe's Rebbe. Hilchata, Moshe Misinai. The Allah Moshe Misinai. Ammon and Moab, Meiser Ani b'Shviyas. That Ammon and Moab, they give Meiser Ani in the year of Shvi'it. So I don't know why you guys were counting and making a vote in the Beis Medrash, and that's what you're telling me you learned it today. That's not a chidush. That's the wrong thing. That's completely wrong. And as such, he was upset with Yossi, and Yossi, and his eyeballs came out. Now, Maisa, what did Yossi do wrong? He asked him, "What did you learn today in the Midrash?" He said, "This is what happened." So a few things we already mentioned. He should have said, "Listen, Rebbe, I came to learn from you. I really don't want to say anything." Perhaps that's why, in the case of Yeshua, he didn't ask him for a halacha. Maybe halacha can get into too much of a fight or too much wrongly mentioned. So I got this a little bit more easier to share and less problematic. I just want to say there's a halacha that you're not allowed to be Meir halacha lifnei rabbi. You're not allowed to teach a halacha in front of your rebbe. And here he is in front of his rebbe. He's telling this is halacha. You're not allowed to do that. He has to ask rebbe's rishus. He has to say please. He said maybe. He has to refuse to speak in the first place, and then he's forced, and then he'll be okay. But he didn't do any of that. And if someone is Meir halacha b'fnei rabbi, he's chayav mitah. And we know that being blind is like a person who is dead, and therefore he was dead. Now, my time, what's the reason that Amon Moav is giving Meiser during the year of Shemitah? When the Jews came from Mitzrayim, they came up to Eretz Yisrael. They took a lot of cities. But when the Jews came back from Babel after the first exile, they didn't get all those cities back. Now, the first Kedusha, when the Jews came in, the Kedusha only stayed for the time the Jews were there. Like Kitchel also lovely. And they didn't last forever. And the Chachamim, when they came back, they left the border cities specifically without Kedusha of Shemitah. In this way, when it came to the Shemitah year, the Aniyim would have a place to get food from. So they did it deliberately, left unsanctified some areas, that had been part of Yisrael during the first temple. So the planting would be permitted in those areas during Shemitah, since grain that grows in the areas surrounding Eretz Yisrael is subject to the requirements of Maaser under rabbinic law or Halacha Moshe Sinai. That's really the Rambam wants to learn. So they were assured of some income during the Shemitah year. So that's the halacha. Now the Rambam says when the Gemara says halacha Moshe Sinai, it means a halacha Moshe Sinai, and it's a real halacha Moshe Sinai. However, the Rosh and others say no, it means it is barer, it is clear, as if it was halacha Moshe Messina, but it's not an actual halacha Moshe Messina. Rather, it's a Messiah that Amon Moya have to give Meiser Ani. So Machlekes Rishayim in the Rosh and the Rambam, if it means an actual halacha Moshe Messina, or it means clear as a halacha Moshe Messina. Tona Raita, Achar Shnit Yasheva Dato. Once his mind became calm. Amar, he said, the eyes of Yossi should go back into his sockets. And they did. And they went back into his eyes, or back into his former state, and he was able to see. Okay, well, that was a lot of a guidance. We'll have one halachic gemara, and we'll give the psak in this halachic gemara as well. Who is considered a shota? So we say a lot of times in halacha, shota is pater from mitzvahs. Now, the person is obviously crazy, then of course he's pater mitzvahs. Here our question is really, the guy is relatively normal. He talks normally, he does most of the things normally, but he's doing some things off. So how do you define Ezu shota? So the Gemara says, the person that goes out alone at night. Terry Evans says, what do you mean? Everyone goes out alone at night. It means in a non-inhabited place. No one's there. And he sleeps in a Beis HaKvuros, in a cemetery. And one who rends his garments, who rips his garments. These are three things. So the question is, do you need all three? Or only one? So Itmar, Ravuna Amar, all of them have to happen at one time. If I can say, at one time, I have to do all three? No. And one guy has to do all three. The Turei Evan. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, afilu be'achas mehen. Even if he does one of them. So Machlekes Ravuna and Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Huna is of the opinion you have to do all three. And Rabbi Yochanan says he has to do one of them. The Rambam and the Beis Yosef, they understand that this doesn't mean it has to actually be like this. Here's the hold on a second. One second, let me just find the spot. Okay. Says the Rambam. Simonim elu einom bedavko. These are not the exact things that you need to say. Elu adin b'chol advarim shederech hashoytu la'asotam. The guy does anything in an imbecilic way, in a crazy way, that is enough. And that's what they say. So it's lav dafka. It's lav dafka. And it has to be, what about how many it has to be? So we said the Rambam, Paschins lets the Dat Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, here we're going to read to you what it says as follows. One second. Bilvad kvar nechshav adam l'shoita im darklo isis ma'asezet kamid. Okay, so that's the Rambam's thing. The Rambam says, like Rabbi Yochanan, it has to be done even one thing. Doesn't have to be any of these three things. Anything that's done imbecile, but it has to be done b'derech kamid. It has to be done something that the guy's constantly doing. If he just did it one time crazy, two times crazy, that's not going to be considered that he's a shoita. Has he's continuously doing what's it called, like a shaita, and then that he can consider a shaita. It doesn't have to be any of these three. It can be anything similar to these three. Meanwhile, let's continue the Gemara. Hey Chidami, what's the case of him doing this? If he's doing it crazy in a crazy style, the Gemara says even Rabbi Huna should agree that with one he's crazy because he's doing it in a crazy way. If he's not doing it in a crazy way, if you look like, see, because Rabbi Yochanan, he shouldn't be considered he shouldn't be considered a shaita. So where it says really he's doing it in a crazy way, but maybe there's a rationale. Maybe you can say he's going into the basic for us, so maybe he can get infused with bad spirits, so he can do magic, or he wants to hear spirits and know how to do parnasa, like he had that story. So maybe there's a reason, there's a time for him to go there. But one who goes out alone at night, perhaps a sickness got onto him and he needed to go and take a walk and cool down. The guy who's ripping his garment, maybe he's really a very smart person who's meditating, and while he's meditating, he's fidgeting and ripping his clothing. None of these. So when he does all these three, it's like a kemisha nagach shor chamor v'gamal v'nasa muad lakoil. Right, if an ox damages another ox three times, then he's a muad for all oxes. But if he's not a muad for a donkey, but if he does one of each, then he's a muad for all animals. So this guy who did all three, even if there's a rationale, he should still be considered crazy. Gemara then says, Amar Papa, I think Rav Huna would take back his teaching that he said you need to have all three. Ishamel Rav Huna Hadatanya. If you would have learned this Braita, the Braita says, Ezu Shaita, Zet Aben Koma Shenoitlim Loi. This is a person who destroys everything that you give him. He doesn't realize the difference between a nut and a gold coin. He doesn't realize the difference between garbage and something that you keep. He destroys everything. So based on this, Abu Hadar Bey, Rav Huna would have gone back on his teaching that you need all three. Whereas says Ibailahu, if he would have gone back, what would he exactly have gone back on? Would he have said that ripping the clothing is like this guy losing something, that destroying something that is important, and that's enough? The Damilaha, since it's similar to this, and if it's not for this, he needs another two. He needs the other two going out at night, sleeping in the thing. Or perhaps he would have reversed in regard to all three cases and saying that no, just one is enough at all. Gemara answers Teiku. The question is left unresolved, but the halacha is like the Rambam, and we'll read it in the English in the Steinsaltz as he brings down this halacha from the Rambam. Let's just read it together, and with this we'll end. Says the Rambam. This is also, he's bringing here the Shulchan Aruch, and he's saying Yeridei Choshen Mishpat. Let's take a look. With regard to one who goes out alone at night, tears his garment, sleeps in the cemetery, or loses whatever he is given, if he performs any one of these actions in a deranged manner, he has the halachic status of an imbecile in accordance to the opinion of Yochanan, but this applies only if he regularly behaves in this manner. If not, he does it once in a while. He does not have the halachic status of an imbecile even if he performs an act in a deranged manner. Similarly, one whose mind is constantly impaired in one aspect, even if he's otherwise coherent, is considered an imbecile. So only one little thing he needs to do wrong, and he does it always wrong, he's considered a shotah. So the guy can be high functioning and do everything. There's one thing he does imbecilic, not in a normal way, and he does it there. He's considered a shotah and he's potter from the mitzvahs. Okay, this is the Gemara for today, and we're wishing everyone a Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
Thank you.